Have you ever been told to leave the house you built with your own hands by the man who married your daughter? What would you do if the only place that still held her voice suddenly became someone else's property? I didn't yell, didn't beg. I just walked away. But not for long. Because some truths don't stay buried, not even when everyone wants them to. Before we jump in, I want to know, where in the world are you right now and what time are you listening? Let me know in the comments. I sat near the door, not because I was late, but because I wasn't sure I belonged there anymore. The seats filled with people I didn't know. Whispering like this was a polite gathering, not a goodbye. Most had never been in my daughter's room or heard her laugh until she couldn't breathe. Mark stood at the front greeting guests as if hosting a fundraiser, shaking hands, smiling too wide. He hugged a woman my daughter had once called cruel, the one who'd said she was high-strung at a barbecue years ago. That day my daughter had come inside and told me, one day I'll live somewhere no one can talk to me like that. She was 24. Soft fire, she called it. The man at the podium spoke about strength and quiet women. I remember none of it. I kept hearing them say their home, their life, their dreams, as if she hadn't grown up there, as if I hadn't built that house with her in mind. Then Mark cut in. "I'll be keeping the house," he said. "It's what she would have wanted." No one flinched. Some even nodded. My jaw locked. My hand closed around the key in my pocket until the ridges bit my skin. A woman beside me whispered, "Let it go, Ed. He's her husband now." Couldn't answer. Something in me went still hollow, not angry. Stood during the hymn past rows of strangers who kept their eyes ahead. In the car, the engine stayed off. The windshield caught a dull sheen from the streetlights. The old key rested in my palm, scratched, bent, shaped by years. She once joked I'd used it more than my wedding ring. It slipped from my hand, landing near the pedal with a faint clink. Left it there. Leaned back, palms open on my knees, staring through the glass at nothing specific, just waiting for the world to settle enough to understand itself again. He didn't open the door right away. When it finally swung open, Mark stood with one hand on the knob, jaw tight, eyes dull. "I think it's best if you clear your things out today," he said. "She left this house to us. I want to start fresh." I didn't argue, just nodded and stepped in. The place smelled faintly of air freshener. A woman I didn't know was wiping the counters. She glanced up when I entered, then lowered her eyes. Every room had been shifted. The photos along the stairs were gone, the bookshelf half empty, the quilt my wife made folded into a corner. I didn't touch it. I went straight to the closet, opened the bottom drawer, and found my old toolbox. In the garage, I placed it beside a few picture frames my daughter had once taken when she moved out, then back again after their second separation. I laid them in a cardboard box and taped it shut. Mark appeared at the door. "We're clearing out her things next week," he said. "No point keeping what stirs up bad feelings." I didn't answer. There was nothing I could say that wouldn't make it worse. He lingered near the door while I packed. When I finished, I lifted the box, and Toolbox gave the room one last glance and walked past him toward the driveway. The woman from the kitchen held the door for me. Her eyes dropped when I nodded thanks. I drove east without turning on the radio. Streets I'd known all my life felt different, traffic lights changing without meaning, trees passing like unfinished thoughts. The room I rented sat above a duplex near the river. Thin walls, creaky floor, but clean. I set the box on the table, the toolbox beneath, and let the quiet settle. A voicemail blinked. Someone from the old neighborhood Mark was selling the furniture online, her desk, her piano, the mirror she'd found on our last trip. I hadn't known he'd started clearing it out. I sat down, letting the news sink in. I told myself to stay out of it, that maybe this was his way of coping. But that wasn't true. It wasn't about grief. It was about erasure, how easily people remove what they don't want to remember. A knock came as I reached for the kettle. Linda stepped in without waiting, paper bag in hand. "Sandwiches," she said. "You'd skip lunch otherwise." We sat at the small table. I didn't touch the food. She took a bite, then asked, "You're really letting him throw everything out? I watched a woman walk her dog down the street." "I don't want to fight. Pushing back will just make it worse. People already think I'm bitter." Linda wiped her hands on a napkin. "You're not doing this for peace, Ed. You're doing it because it's easier to vanish than admit they stopped seeing you." Her words landed harder than I wanted them to. "I'm tired," I said. "You're not tired," she replied. "You're hurt. And you think silence will make them remember who you were." The bag between us stayed closed. Her sandwich half gone, mine untouched. Light faded across the room, turning the walls gray. I filled the kettle, and the sound of water covered the quiet between us. She didn't press further. When it began to boil, I opened the box from the house. On top was a photo of my daughter in the backyard, holding the crooked birdhouse we built together. I set it beside the sandwiches. Cars drifted by. Their rhythm steadied something in me. My eyes stayed on the photo not for comfort, but to remember the parts of me still living in what others left behind. We were sanding cedar planks for a porch swing, just the two of us in the back of the shop. The machines hummed low dust drifting through the stillness. Tom wiped his sleeves and glanced my way. "Didn't know you sold the house," he offered like it was nothing. "Mark's been tearing out the kitchen. Said he's redoing the whole place top to bottom." I stopped sanding. The board slipped slightly under my hands. "Sold?" I asked. Tom nodded. "Last week." "You didn't know?" I shook my head. The sander buzzed on the table, still humming when I stepped back. My fingers tingled, maybe from the vibration, maybe from what I'd just heard. "I need to head out early," I told him. "Let Greg know." He looked at me but didn't ask questions. The drive back blurred by. I don't recall a single stoplight. At the apartment, I went straight to the closet and pulled out the old accordion folder my daughter had given me before her wedding. "Keep this for me, Dad," she'd whispered just in case. On the table, I spread everything out: tax forms, hospital papers, a note of passwords I'd never used. At the back, tucked between manila sheets, was the property title: Owner of Record Edward Grant. No amendments, no transfers, just me. The letters wavered as I read them. That house wasn't his to sell. I called Henry Maddox, the lawyer who'd drawn up the deed years ago. He answered quickly. "Ridgefield Avenue," I said. "Has any ownership change recently?" "No," he replied. "You're still the only title holder. Why someone's claiming otherwise?" "Well, they're wrong. Tell them to call me if they need proof." When the line went silent, I sat back. The room felt hollow, airless. I folded the title, slid it back into the folder. It wasn't about paperwork. It was about what Mark had been doing for months, bending the story until people forgot where it began. The house was still mine, but my daughter had known it should be. She'd kept my name there for a reason. Mark was always chasing quick wins, half-built ventures, borrowed money promises that expired before they landed. Once she'd told me, "If anything happens, you'll know what to do." I hadn't thought she meant this. The folder's plastic edge had softened with time. She must have trusted I'd keep it safe, not knowing I'd also keep it closed. Maybe Mark assumed I'd forgotten, or that I'd stay quiet to keep the peace. For a while, he wasn't wrong. I'd swallowed pride, laughed off disrespect, let him speak for me at dinners as if my name no longer mattered. But this was different. Thought crossed my mind: drive, overshove the title in his hands, end it there. Instead, stayed still. Too weary for anger, too awake to ignore it. The folder reopened with a soft crackle. Each line read slow, like tracing back a life already lived. My name, her trust, nothing borrowed from anyone else. By morning, the storm had passed. Portland looked rinsed, but not renewed. Wet sidewalks, napkins clinging to gutters, trees shaking off the week's weight. Linda chose the cafe by the river. We'd brought Grace there once, back when Mark still tried to be the man she imagined. She'd sat between us, ordering too much, finishing too little. Linda was already seated. No greeting, just a folded paper sliding across the table. "He's trying to use the house as collateral," she said. "Didn't reach for it. Loan applications already started. Ridgefield address listed as the asset." The page opened flat beneath my hands. An email chain, Mark attaching a fake listing bragging about agile capital reinvestment. The words blurred for a beat before settling. "He doesn't own it?" "He knows," Linda replied. "He's betting you won't say that aloud." The chair creaked as I leaned back. "I'm not letting him do this." "Then don't," she replied. "I won't shout. I won't make a scene." "Good. Just remember, silence can look noble, but sometimes it's surrender." There wasn't more to say. The next morning, an email from Mark arrived, short, clipped. Subject: enough. "You need to stop interfering. The house was hers and mine. You've had your time. Move on. No greeting, no sign-off, just dismissal." I printed it, slid it into the folder with the deed, and drove to Henry's office. He skimmed the message and let out a dry laugh. "We'll keep this," he said. "Could be useful." That was it. No threats, no drama, just another piece of evidence. On the way back, I stopped at the hardware store, bought sanding sheets and gloves. I still planned to work the next morning. When I arrived, Greg stood near my bench, arms crossed, unease written all over him. Ed got a minute. I followed him toward the back office. He rubbed his temple. "I got a call yesterday. From Mark." I waited. He said, "You've been struggling. Mentioned your daughter, the house. Said you were having trouble letting go." Greg exhaled. "I know it's not my place, but I've got safety protocols. Other guys here depend on me. If something went wrong, you're letting me go. I'm asking you to take a break, a few weeks, paid if HR allows it." He looked like he expected a fight. I didn't give him one. I packed my tools, erased my name from the timesheet, and left the new gloves behind. The walk to the bus stop felt longer than usual. The sky hung undecided clouds, heavy but holding. I sat near the back beside a kid in paint-splattered overalls, tapping his knee in rhythm. It wasn't losing the job that stung. It was how neatly Mark had done it, quiet knife work, leaving no fingerprints. He'd stepped past decency, as if it were just another line on the floor. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It was removed. The slow, deliberate kind. I stayed on 2 stops longer than mine, not by mistake, but to feel the weight of it settle. Not anger yet, just the steady recognition that he didn't plan to stop, and I couldn't keep pretending I could. When I finally stood, the kid nodded at me like he'd overheard something without words. I didn't nod back. Henry's office sat above a bail bond agency near the courthouse, 2 flights up the same stairs that groaned in the middle. The framed degrees still hung crooked. The radiator still hissed under the window. He didn't offer coffee. He just motioned for me to sit, and opened the bottom drawer, pulling out a thick manila envelope, sealed with a loop of string. "This came in about 3 years ago," he said. "Your daughter left it with clear instructions, no mention unless you asked." He set it on the desk. "She wanted it kept off record. Said you'd understand when the time came." I undid the string with my thumb. Inside was a single notarized page, signed and dated a quiet bomb. The house. Transferred fully to me. At the bottom, her handwriting. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I just wanted you to have one place in this world where you never have to lower your head." My hand rested over the page. Words pressed harder than they looked. Henry let the quiet sit. "She believed Mark would rise to it," he said. "She was wrong," I answered. "He didn't rise." He stepped over. I folded the paper carefully, keeping her handwriting smooth, and slipped it back into the envelope. "I'm not trying to ruin him," I said. "This isn't revenge. I just want him to understand that everything he's had, every comfort was given by grace, not entitlement." Henry leaned back. "That's a clear way to put it." When I stepped into the hall, my phone buzzed. "Linda." "She left me the house," I told her. She paused. She knew she planned for this. Not the fight, just the silence. She knew I wouldn't speak until I had to. "You okay? I'm clear," I said, and done watching him strip away what she tried to protect. "You going straight to him?" "No, to the lawyer." Quietly. "Good," she said. "Real justice doesn't need an audience." Standing beneath the dry cleaner's awning, the envelope warmed in my pocket. Thumb brushed the sealed flap paper thick, time-thin between her handwriting and the quiet she'd left behind. She had trusted I'd never let things go too far. But peace had turned to avoidance. Dignity mistaken for silence. Now her words sat in my hands, legal final. No reason left to wait. The apartment felt colder that night. The heater stayed off. Stillness was something earned, not broken. On the table, everything was laid out: deed letter emails, court forms stacked clean and square. Not control, just intention. The form from earlier waited at the top. Legal phrasing: bloodless and exact, unlawful use of property without consent, immediate relief requested. Beneath it all, the truth was simpler, done asking to be seen. Reached for the phone. Linda answered fast. "You still up?" "It's not even 10. I'm not 80. I need a favor. You've got it. A statement. About what Grace told you, the house, her reasons. I remember it well," she said. "She wanted you to have a place where you'd never need to fight for space in your own life. That's the part they need to understand. I'll write it tonight. You want me there when you file? No. It needs to stay clean. She'll lash out," she warned. "I know. Then stay calm. Let truth work for you. I'm not after payback. Then don't let it look like you are." We hung up. I stared at the phone until another message appeared. "You want a war, old man? Be careful what you start. No name. Didn't need one." I read it once, deleted it. Mark always liked getting the last word, even when he hadn't earned it. I walked to the window. The street was quiet, except for a single bike passing by. The stillness pressed in, but I didn't mind it. Back at the table, I checked the folder again. The envelope, the deed, the emails, the forms, each where it should be. Grace had trusted me with this. I'd waited long enough. I took a blank page and wrote a short list: Henry's number, filing office address, court drop-off time, Linda's statement pending. Backups saved, enough to move forward. Water pipes groaned somewhere in the building, a chair scraped overhead, then quiet. I slipped the envelope into my coat, pressed it flat. Light in weight, heavy in meaning. The law office smelled faintly of paper and disinfectant. I arrived early. The receptionist still had her coat on. She offered coffee. I shook my head. Henry waved me in from the hall. The conference room felt smaller than I remembered, same scarred table, same tired walls. A pitcher of water sat between us. Henry flipped through the file that had lived in his drawer longer than either of us expected. "You ready for this? I'm here." He nodded, straightened the papers. We didn't wait long. Mark's voice reached us before he did, loud, rehearsed, full of certainty. He entered first, 2 men behind him. Didn't greet me. He dropped into the chair opposite mine, scrolling through his phone. Let's make it quick. I've got another meeting. Henry's tone stayed even. We're here to review the will and private addendum, both signed and notarized. Mark leaned back. Whatever's left, I'll handle it. Henry began reading. Legal phrasing filled the room, dates, signatures, clauses, until the line that changed everything. All assets, including the residence at Ridgefield Avenue, are to remain under the sole ownership of Edward Grant. The room froze. Mark gave a short laugh. That's wrong. She told me the house was ours. Henry didn't flinch. This is her final statement signed 2 years before she passed. She changed her mind. I'm only reading what she filed, Henry replied. Mark's jaw tightened. His companions shifted but stayed silent. He turned toward me. You did this. You manipulated her, took advantage while she was sick. I built that house, I said, evenly. She made her own choice. You think this makes you noble? You think you've won? I'm not here to win. Just listen to her words. He slammed his fist on the table glass, rattling. One of the men tried to calm him. He pulled away. This is garbage. You'll hear from me. You already have, Henry said, closing the folder. Mark stormed outdoor, striking the wall. His friends followed, heads down. Silence settled hard. The echo of his shoes lingered in the hall. Henry stacked the papers neatly. We'll file today. Copies to your address. Yes. He slid a pen toward me. I signed where he pointed. When it was done, he rested his hand on the file. She meant for you to be protected. Whatever happens next, truth's already on your side. I nodded. Words felt unnecessary. When he left, I stayed. The papers lay open in front of me. Her handwriting stood out at the bottom. If you're reading this, I'm not here anymore. I just wanted you to have one place in this world where you never have to lower your head. I read it again. The weight that had sat in me for years began to loosen. Not relief, just release. The hallway was empty. A half-finished coffee cooled on the receptionist's desk beside a wilting plant. I took the elevator down alone. The wind carried the scent of wet concrete and pine. I breathed it in, then kept walking. Word spread faster than I expected. Portland always shrinks when gossip starts. By week's end, everyone who'd ever passed Ridgefield Avenue had an opinion. At the diner, 2 men in work jackets whispered over their coffee. One who'd helped Mark paint the porch, another who used to mow his lawn. I caught fragments, my name, inheritance, a pause, when they noticed I could hear. I didn't bother correcting them. Henry had warned me it would go this way. Small towns may act polite, he'd said, but they keep score in whispers. By Thursday, Mark filed his appeal, claimed I'd forged the will, manipulated the notary, deceived his wife. The court letter came in a plain envelope folded carelessly. I laid it flat on the kitchen table and read until the lines blurred. Linda showed up that evening with sandwiches and a thermos. She noticed the letter before I could hide it. So it's official, I nodded. You ready for this? I don't think I need to be ready, I said. I just want the truth to stay where it belongs. She sat across from me. He'll make noise. But noise isn't proof. Doesn't stop people from listening. She tapped the envelope. Let them talk. You just show up. That night I reread every page, the hearing date, witness list, document requests. Everything tidy, detached, procedural. Not fear, not relief, just the weight of duty. The next morning, a message from an old neighbor. You seen what he posted. I opened my laptop. Mark's post filled the screen. My late wife's father is trying to take everything she and I built. He's twisted the truth-hired lawyers and stolen her memory for pride. I'm fighting back because someone has to protect what she wanted. Hundreds of comments, some called me greedy, others called him unhinged. Most argued like spectators at a game. I scrolled once and closed it. The people who mattered knew me. The rest would invent their own versions. That afternoon, I went back to the wood shop. Not for the job, just to see if they needed hands. The place smelled the same sawdust varnish machine oil. Greg looked up from his bench. "Didn't think I'd see you this soon. I won't get in the way, I told him. Got anything that needs doing?" He nodded toward a pile of rough boards. Could use someone to plane those down. That was enough. No one asked questions. They'd heard things but kept their heads down. The air carried that careful quiet people use when they don't know what's true. I didn't mind. The rhythm of the tools helped. The grain of the wood gave me something solid to hold on to. Hours passed unnoticed until the bell over the door rang for closing. "You heading home?" Greg asked. "Yeah. You okay?" I nodded. That was all it took. The walk back felt longer than before. Streetlights hummed above puddles' reflections wobbling with each car. The cafe where Linda and I used to meet was dark now, chairs stacked on tables. Upstairs, the room was still. My phone buzzed another notification, another opinion, but I didn't check. A faint water stain marked the ceiling. I traced its uneven edge until it blurred. Then came the rain, soft first, then steadier. I set the phone face up on the table. Its glow spilled dim across the wall. My reflection flickered on the screen before fading. The lines around my eyes looked deeper, but the gaze felt steady. The courtroom felt colder than I expected, not from the weather, but from something heavier. I sat on the left side, hands folded over the envelope that held everything I had. No lawyer beside me, no legal pads or strategy, just paper plain and certain. Mark entered with his attorney in tow, both of them looking confident the way people do when they still believe control is the same as victory. He smiled faintly when he saw me, a flash of arrogance that didn't quite reach his eyes. The lawyer, a tall man in a tailored suit, carried a binder thick enough to make a point before anyone spoke. The judge started with the basics: case number, date summary of dispute. The rhythm of typing filled the background. Mark's lawyer spoke first, voice calm practiced. "My client believes the document presented as the will was fabricated after the decedent's passing. We have evidence suggesting inconsistencies in signing and intent." I didn't interrupt, didn't look at Mark. When it was my turn, the judge asked Mr. Grant, "Do you have counsel today?" "No," I said. "I'll speak for myself." "Then you may respond." I stood, unfolded the top page. "I'm not here to take from anyone," I said, "only to keep what she asked me to protect." The judge nodded. "And you have documentation?" "Yes, Your Honor." I passed the folder forward. He studied the deed, the letter, the statement. Before he could continue, Mark's attorney lifted a small recorder. "If I may, Your Honor, we have evidence relevant to intent." He pressed play. My daughter's voice filled the room, faint, tired, but hers. "If anything happens to me, you keep the house okay? You keep it safe." Then silence. The lawyer stopped the playback, looking at me as if expecting collapse. "That's her clear as day. She wanted my client to keep the property." I stared at the table. Her voice lingered in the air, too alive and too far away. It had been years since I'd heard it, and still it found its mark. The judge asked Mr. Grant, "Do you wish to respond?" "The recording's been cut," I said. She didn't say who she was talking to, and she never signed anything that said otherwise. Mark leaned forward. "You can twist it however you want. We both know what she meant." I didn't reply. The judge lifted a hand. "We'll verify the full recording through forensic review. Both sides will submit originals within 7 days. Just like that, the session ended. Mark gathered his things, muttering something sharp as he left. His lawyer followed. I stayed seated until the clerk dimmed the lights. The folder in my hands was warm, where I'd held it too long. In the hallway, Linda waited, holding a small envelope. "I thought you might need this," she said. "What is it?" Something Grace sent me months before she passed. I thought you already knew. I opened it. Not a letter and email, printout ink faded but legible. I asked Dad to keep the title under his name. It's safer that way. I don't want any risk, not with how things are going. Tell him I trust him more than anyone else. At the bottom, I only trust my father. I stopped reading. The hallway noise, the shuffle of feet, murmured conversations blurred into background hum. Linda touched my sleeve. This should close that gap. I nodded, slipping the page back. I didn't want to win, I said quietly. But I can't let her words be twisted. Then let the truth speak, she said. It's got her handwriting all over it. We walked toward the exit. The envelope felt lighter than it should have, too light for what it held. Near the doors, I looked once more at that last line, I only trust my father. He picked the cafe. Called it neutral ground, though nothing between us had been neutral for months. I arrived early out of habit, not strategy. Ordered black coffee and let it cool untouched. Mark arrived a few minutes late, shoving the cafe door hard enough to rattle the bell. He scanned the room like he expected an audience. When he spotted me, his jaw tightened. He came straight over, dropped into the chair across from mine. No greeting? What do you want? He asked, voice sharp. You've made your point. Got your little victory. What's next? Money, I'll sell half the house and cut you a check. I don't want your money. He gave a dry laugh. Then what an apology. You want me on my knees. I let him run. His anger came in bursts like steam from a pipe. You dragged my name through court, he went on. Made me look like a thief. You think that makes you righteous? I didn't make you look like anything I said. You did that yourself. He leaned closer, eyes flaring. You're enjoying this? No, I'm tired. He slammed his hand on the table. Cups rattled. Then what the hell do you want from me for you to stop lying? The words landed heavy. He froze, then shot to his feet. His chair screeched. Coffee sloshed across the table, dripping onto the floor. A woman gasped nearby. The barista froze mid-motion. Mark's hands trembled, though he tried to mask it. You've always thought you were better than me, he hissed. Even when she was alive, you couldn't stand that she chose me. I loved her. So did I. Then you should have protected what she wanted. His laugh broke halfway through. She's gone, Ed. You can't treat her memory like a contract. This isn't about holding on, I said. It's about not letting her story be rewritten. We stared at each other. The cafe's noise had thinned to waiting air. Mark's mouth twitched, but no words came. Then he grabbed his coat and walked out, leaving the chair crooked and the cup on its side. The door shut behind him with a hollow thud. I stayed seated. The barista approached with a rag. I'm sorry about that. Not your fault. She began wiping, but I stopped her. It's fine, I'll handle it. I blotted the spill with napkins, stacking each one neatly. The motion steadied me, simple quiet. The coffee had cooled, but the stain was still warm. I pressed a fingertip to it, then let go. Daylight was fading. People hurried by, coats pulled close. The cafe noise crept back, espresso steam. Low Talk, a song too soft to catch. I scrolled to Henry's number and called. He picked up on the second ring. Ed, it's me. Everything all right? Yes, I said. We continue. A pause. Then understood. I set the phone beside the cup. The smell of coffee clung to my hands. For a while I didn't move, watching my reflection blur against the glass. No pride, just resolve. When I finally stood, I left a few bills on the table and nodded to the barista. The article broke on Monday morning. Someone sent me the link before I'd finished my first cup of coffee. Local man exploits legal loophole to seize deceased daughter's estate. A headline built to be shared. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Old numbers I hadn't seen in years lit up the screen. Neighbors, distant cousins, men I used to work beside at the mill. Some wanted to hear my side. Most didn't. One message read, "Didn't think you'd be that kind of man." I stopped answering after the 5th call. By evening, the noise online had grown its own shape. Comment sections filled with strangers arguing about me, what kind of father steals from his family, whether grief makes people greedy. They didn't know a thing beyond what they'd been fed, but that didn't matter. The story had already decided itself. The next morning I went to the courthouse. Henry had warned this would happen. Mark's people spreading rumor shaping air before the next hearing. Still seeing it printed hit different. Lies always look heavier in ink. 2 reporters waited near the steps, cameras ready. Mr. Grant, one called, "Do you have a response to the allegations I kept walking? Is it true your daughter left the house to her husband and you overrode her will?" I didn't look up. That evening, Linda stood by my steps, grocery bag in one hand, newspaper in the other. "They printed another piece," she said. "Front page this time." I unlocked the door and let her in. She set the bag down, eyes searching my face. "You're not going to respond, are you?" "No." "Why not? I don't need them to believe me. Just the court." She sighed. "You could still set the record straight. People are saying awful things. I've been called worse. That's not the point." "I know. You're too calm for a man under fire." "I've had practice," I said. "After a while, you stop flinching when the flames feel familiar." She didn't laugh. Neither did I. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table until dark. The hum of the fridge filled the quiet. An unopened envelope from the court lay beside my cup. I reached for it, then set it back down. I wasn't ready to read another version of myself that didn't exist. In the corner cabinet sat a wooden box I hadn't opened in years. I lifted the lid. Letters tied with a faded ribbon, her handwriting looping steady across each envelope. I'd kept them sealed, telling myself they were hers to keep. But that night, I changed my mind. The first letter was dated 3 years before her diagnosis. The ink had smudged near the bottom. "Dad, I know you think silence means strength, but it also means no one knows when you're hurting. Don't let people decide what kind of man you are. They'll be wrong either way." Another came months later. "If things ever turn against you, remember you don't have to shout to be right." Her words were plain, sharp, certain, just like her. I held the page under the lamp, tracing each letter with my thumb. The park along the Willamette was quiet that morning. The chill hung low, heavy, but not harsh. Linda and I walked side by side, keeping the same slow rhythm without needing to match it. She carried a small thermos steam threading through the lid. I hadn't had coffee yet, but the smell of hers was enough. For a while we didn't speak. The city was waking behind us, traffic, faint dogs barking somewhere in the distance. She finally broke the quiet. "You can win this," she said, eyes forward. "But don't let it eat you alive, it won't," I said. "It can't. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm just taking back what Grace trusted me with." Linda nodded, but I could feel her worry in the way she gripped her thermos tighter. We reached the bench by the river, the one with a clear view of the bridge, and the brown water moving fast beneath it. The current ran strong, carrying everything the hills let go. I sat first. The wood was damp, but steady. I started organizing the paperwork, I said. "Originals, deed, tax filings, notarized letter. Henry's getting the witness statement from the clerk." "Good," Linda said. "Keep it clean. Keep it simple. That's the plan." She didn't fill the space with advice. That was the thing about Linda, she stayed near without steering. I pulled the folder from my bag, the same one I'd carried since the first hearing. The pages had grown heavier over time, proof stacking into weight. I handed her the newest record. No transfer ever happened. She scanned it quickly, and the signatures verified. Her shoulders eased. Then you're ready. Not yet, I said. But close. Wind cut across the path, scattering leaves between the stones. A jogger passed, nodding once. The river hissed against itself, movement without rest. Linda poured coffee into the thermos cap and offered it. I warmed my hands before drinking. The bitterness settled me. You ever think about walking away? She asked. Every day. And I can't. She left me something to protect, not just the house, but the part of her that believed I still could. That kind of belief's heavy. It's the only kind worth carrying. The clouds gathered, the stillness thickened. A few drops fell. Neither of us moved. We sat through the drizzle. I slid the folder back into my bag, leather worn soft at the corners. You'll be fine, she said. Maybe. But that's not really the point. What is then? To finish it right, I said. Without bitterness. I don't want this to be what people remember about me or about her. You still talk like she's listening. I hope she is. We let the quiet settle. The river shimmered faintly, its edge soft where the current slowed. A breeze lifted a few strands of Linda's hair. I didn't bother fixing mine. She reached into her bag and handed me a small plastic sleeve. You gave this to me months ago. Inside was the photo of Grace, 8 years old, mud on her knees, hair wild from the wind. She'd been helping me build the porch, holding nails like treasure. She looks like you when she smiles, Linda said. She had her mother's stubbornness. We both laughed, a short sound that faded but left something lighter behind. I think I'm ready now, I said. Linda didn't answer, just nodded once. The courthouse smelled faintly of paper and worn coats. I arrived early as always. Waiting in quiet was easier than walking in late under eyes that had already decided what they believed. Henry was there sorting the last of the documents, precise, almost ritual. He looked up when I entered. You ready? As much as anyone can be, I said. He handed me a copy of the filing. Everything's here. The email from Linda Tax Records deed verification. It's airtight. I ran my thumb along the folder's edge, tracing it like an old scar. When the clerk called us in, the room filled slowly. Mark came last. He didn't meet my eyes. His tie sat too tight, his face drawn and pale. His lawyer whispered something, but he stayed rigid, jaw locked. The judge entered, calm, deliberate. This court has reviewed the submitted evidence, she began. The question concerns rightful ownership of the Ridgefield Avenue property. I kept my gaze on the wood grain of the table, oak solid scarred. Henry stood. Your Honor, the original deed lists Edward Grant as sole owner, corroborated by notarized documents and verified county records. We've also included an authenticated email from Ms. Grace Grant confirming her intent for her father to retain ownership. Everything aligns with state law. No ambiguity. He placed each piece of evidence on the table. The judge flipped through the pages, measured and calm. Mark's lawyer rose next, clearing his throat. While my client believes the decedent verbally expressed other wishes, we acknowledge there's no written amendment or supporting testimony. Mark's hands tightened on the table, knuckles white. He stared down somewhere past his own shadow. The judge brought the gavel down once, soft, final. The court finds no legal basis to contest ownership. The Ridgefield Avenue residence remains the property of Mr. Edward Grant. Any prior occupation or claim is void. The room fell still. Mark didn't move. His lawyer touched his arm. He didn't react. I stayed seated. The verdict wasn't victory, just the slow untying of something long wound tight. When the session ended, reporters murmured toward the hallway. Henry packed the papers neatly into his case. It's done, he said. Thank you, I replied. He gave a quiet nod. She'd be proud. Maybe I said. I just hope she's at peace. He left to file the last documents. I lingered until the room emptied. Mark was still there, fumbling with his coat like a man unsure where to go. We met near the door. I hope you find somewhere that feels like home, I told him. Something steady. Something that doesn't need taking. He gave a small nod, more reflex than answer, and walked out. The house smelled faintly of paint when I opened the door. Someone, probably Mark, had tried to hide the cracks with a new coat, pale beige that didn't quite match the old tone. The floors creaked the same way they always had every step, reminding me how long the place had waited. I stood in the doorway for a minute, letting the quiet settle around me. The furniture was gone, except for the old table I'd built decades ago. I set the framed photo of Grace right in the center. Her smile in that picture was crooked caught mid-laughter, the same way she'd looked when she'd ask for another story before bed. The garden was a mess of weeds. But near the porch steps, half buried under leaves, I found the old clay pot she used to keep lavender in. The rim was chipped, but the soil still held the faint scent of the plant she loved. I knelt, brushed it clean, and decided to bring it back to life. The next morning I drove to a nursery on the edge of town. The woman there helped me choose a few young lavender sprouts, explaining how they needed good drainage, how too much shade would stunt them. I thanked her, paid, and drove home without turning on the radio. Back at the house, I filled the pot with new soil, pressed the small plants in gently, and watered them until the dirt darkened. The smell rose almost immediately, fresh, sharp, something like memory, but gentler. I didn't do much else to the house. The walls stayed bare, the paint uneven, the corners still carrying marks of someone else's attempts to erase me. I left them that way. It felt more honest than trying to make it perfect again. Around noon, Linda came by. She didn't knock, just called out from the porch. "You planning to feed yourself or starve quietly?" She carried a paper bag that smelled of butter and toast. I let her in. "I brought enough for 2, she said, setting the bag on the counter. "You always do." We ate at the small kitchen table, coffee between us, the morning sun climbing just enough to touch the edges of the plates. Neither of us mentioned the trial, or Mark, or the months that had led here. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It felt earned. After a while, Linda leaned back and looked around the room. "You'll fix it up." "Eventually," I said. "Maybe start with the workshop out back. The tools are still there." Her mouth curved slightly. "You're really going to open it again, I think so," I said. "Maybe take on small repairs. There's always someone who needs a shelf or a door mended." "That's good," she said. "This house has been waiting long enough." I nodded. "So have I." She stayed a while longer, talking about her garden, the stray cat that kept showing up on her porch. We drank the last of the coffee and watched sunlight crawl across the floor. When she stood to leave, she squeezed my shoulder lightly. "You'll be all right," she said. "I already am," I replied. She smiled and went out the screen door, closing softly behind her. The afternoon passed without sound. I cleaned the counters, wiped the table, straightened a few things that didn't need straightening. The rhythm of it felt steady, like sanding wood, slow, deliberate enough to quiet the noise inside my head. Later, I stepped out onto the porch with the watering can. The lavender looked small against the wide, empty yard, but its color had deepened in the sun. I poured carefully, watching the soil drink it in. A breeze came off the river, light and cool. It caught the edge of my sleeve, brushed against my face, and carried the lavender's perfume across the yard. For a moment I thought I heard her laughter again, quiet, far away, but there. I stayed still, letting it pass through. The sky was beginning to turn the color of late afternoon, pale gold, fading into blue. When the watering was emptied, I set it beside the pot and wiped my hands on my jeans. I looked toward the open field beyond the fence, the same one she used to run across as a child, chasing after a dog we never managed to train. The memory didn't hurt anymore. It just existed the way lavender keeps its scent long after it's dried. I stood there for a while, maybe longer than I realized. The river murmured somewhere in the distance, steady and indifferent. When the wind shifted again, I could smell the lavender stronger this time. I breathed it in slow and full. For the first time in a long while, I didn't think about leaving.